Miss Rose?
It's yeah.
Oh, she's still.
It's coming through. She's talking. It's just not coming through the speakers. Yeah.
Well, this isn't November.
I chopped it down. I'm saying.
It's a little like in your face.
I'm gonna put it.
Yeah, put it to the side.
No, there's no presenters.
I mean, it's so different than what the
I mean, it's 6. Yeah, she told me that. She said she'd be done. This is pretty much the last one.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. She said that.
I just have to make a change.
Okay.
Gave me a sense that it could be different. So again,
A little bit.
I just went down the road.
So, I mean, that's in effect? We don't have to vote on it?
Well, we always do that when elected officials, when the constitutional officers are set, according to Bonnie, we just do it. But what I really, because by law, we can go up to first year teacher salary. I think we should do that as a referendum. Oh, well, you don't have to take it.
Great.
I think we should. I think that.
Oh no.
I know the person kind of played the offensive line.
Hey Karen, we're doing another sound check. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Sounds good. We can hear you. That's good. Okay.
Already working. We're already working on it right now.
We're going to go ahead and get started here in a second.
We are probably already privy to it.
Thirty seconds.
It's after one.
Yeah, they're all here for that. Here we go. We'll go ahead and get started. I call the meeting to order today on October 15th at 3 p.m. Would you please rise, remove your hats, turn off your cell phones. We'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. We'll go ahead and get started today. I mean, obviously, with the terrible tragedy of the hurricane, I know that the board members will have comments at the end in reference to that. I mean, with the shelters, I know that in the superintendent's report, as we got briefed this morning, it has been briefed throughout the hurricane of the really great work, 10,000 people that were sheltered, and the dedicated staff here at Sarasota County. I know there's a lot of families that don't have power and have lost their homes, especially on the barrier islands, as well as damage. Of course, we will reflect upon that at the end, and I know that our hearts go out to them. It seems like that's been a reoccurring theme every 2 weeks, is talking about another one. And we'll go ahead and we'll get started today with today's board meeting and start with the agenda. We have the superintendent's report. Superintendent Connor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Enos, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to take a moment to acknowledge a lot of our staff who were able to work our shelters over the last few days. It's been a tremendous amount of work, a lot of pride in what we were able to accomplish with over 10,000 guests in 17 of our shelters, including 1,600 pets. And I always say, you know, education is our core mission, but the fact that our staff who signed up to be teachers and administrators and food service workers to really take on the role of emergency management is one of those other duties as assigned that we don't like to have to pick up, but when we need to, we are there. And our staff and community did an outstanding job in making sure that we had a safe place during Hurricane Milton. I can tell you there's a lot of work that goes into a process of running a shelter prior to opening the shelter, during the operations of a shelter, and then after with the extensive cleanup that happens. So hats off to all of our people. If you were able, I know we had some challenges with our workshop today, but Dr. Kemp, I think you did a beautiful job in just really sharing all of those people involved in that process and all the work that happened, from safety and security to communications, technology, the administrators running the staff, the food service people, the custodial staff. You know, I'm probably going to miss someone, but hats off to all of them for that work. And what's been we have been very fortunate, while there has been some devastation in places and some things that we are dealing with, our school district at scale really avoided some catastrophic damage. So we were able to ensure by today we have all power. I think down to maybe one building, we're finishing the AC repair. We're good, okay? 100% of our ACs are working. Our technology is up and running. Our teachers and classified staff were back in the buildings today, really just to resettle and tighten up before the kids come tomorrow. And our administrators have been working around the clock. So hats off to them. Just a couple of more stats. We did have the privilege of hosting over 500 National Guard at Riverview High School, as well as over 250 FEMA search and rescue at Sarasota High. And so there's a couple of pictures there. 38,000 meals served while the shelters were open. And so people have been asking, what's our reopening plan? So I've kind of already shared that. So yesterday, on Monday, we were closed at all operations. We did have administrators on staff on Monday, recalibrating and assessing any of the damages and making sure we were safe to open up to our instructional and classified today. On Wednesday and Thursday, we will have regular school happening for all students on Wednesday and Thursday. And Friday was already scheduled a non-student day, a professional day. I know there's a lot of questions right now about makeup time and what's going to happen. Now, when we had Helene, the idea was we were going to use Friday as a makeup day, but in the course of events, we had Milton, and so it was better for us to go ahead and proceed with Friday as a professional day. So we know plans have been made to change those at the very last minute would have been problematic, as well as I think our teachers still need some time to breathe a little bit and get things recalibrated as they move into the next grading period, which I will say we've already made an executive decision to move the grading period, which would have ended this week, to move it to the 25th. The remainder, in terms of days that we're going to make up and instructional minutes, I have a recommendation that I'll be presenting to the calendar committee. That calendar committee will meet this Thursday. We will get their suggestions and feedback, and then I will bring a formal proposal on what that looks like. I do anticipate that there will be a couple of days that are built into the calendar that we will utilize as instructional days, and we'll do some adjusting to ensure that we're meeting all of the required minutes as set forth in statute. So be on the lookout. That will probably come within that proposal either by the end of this week or early next week, so that the community can be apprised as to where we're headed in terms of makeup. I do want to just share for the community at large, as well our staff, our students, our families, around some of the county resources that are available. I think it's really important that if you have not, if you don't know what that information is, to visit the county's website to learn about all of the different resources that are available. There have been points of distribution for food, water, tarps around the county, from Venice Community Center, San Pedro Catholic Church, Inglewood Sports Complex, and Glade Park in Sarasota. So please take advantage of that if you need to do that. We did put out a survey to our staff pretty quickly to assess the severity of needs related to them getting back on their feet. And I'm happy to say our emergency assistance team, comprised of Dr. Moore and Kirk Hutchison and several others, really took charge in taking the data from that survey. We had over 4,000 employees fill that survey out, which I thought was incredible, especially with the connectivity issues that we were facing. And we were able to really hone down where those needs are, and fortunate to say, it's a very manageable number so that we can connect them to the right resources and help people get back on their feet as quickly as possible. So hats off to all of those who are doing that. In terms of meals and food drives, we were able, you see the information that we have up here. We also want to make sure people are aware of the Florida Hope hotline, as well as crisis cleanup. There is the ability to have debris cleaned up within your properties for free. I will say that demand obviously is really high right now, so probably wouldn't be immediate, but it is there. As we move on to the consent agenda, I want to highlight item number 4. We've had some community members reach out to us regarding the affiliation agreement between Liberty University and the School Board of Sarasota County, and I want to make sure that we provide some clarity around that. So a student of that college reached out to our Human Resources Department interested in completing their clinical hours for their education program, which Liberty University does. Liberty is a accredited university that is accredited by the same organizations that has accredited Florida University, FSU University, several staples across the state and across the nation. So when we are facing a a crisis in teaching shortages across this nation, and we're not immune to that in Sarasota County. So when we have the ability to partner with organizations, whether that be for school counseling, which is also one of those hard to fill areas, or teaching, and we have interest for people to come to us as potential recruits, that is something that we're going to look very closely at in creating that partnership. So we have a standard affiliation agreement that we use for all of our colleges, and so I listed the current ones that we have. We've done several of these just in the last, I'd say, year, across making sure that we have the opportunity to support and host students who want to do internships and do their clinical hours with us. For us, it's a great opportunity to potentially recruit those individuals when they do graduate, because we are facing that teacher shortage, and we're always trying to tackle and have strategies to mitigate our vacancies. So that's what this is. It's a standard affiliation agreement that allows students that are a part of this university to participate in their clinical hours. There's been concerns around religious and ideology and things of that nature that's been brought up. I want you to be rest assured that we follow the Florida Department of Education standards and the expectations that the ethical conduct and the professional conduct of our teachers, our interns, or anyone affiliated in our schools are going to uphold what is set forth by the state of Florida. So there is no religious component here that is going to be infused into the instruction, that we will follow those expectations set forth by the Code of Ethics in the Florida Department of Education. So just want to alleviate that concern. So Liberty University did reach out to us. The student did, and we're going to place them in a teaching internship. They are an accredited university, and they do offer bachelor degrees in education and in school counseling, both of which are very hard to fill areas. In terms of Parent University, this is a great, we're kicking off our first Parent University in the district that we're very, very excited about. And it is going to be held at October 24th at Sarasota High School and November 4th at Northport High School from 5 to 7:15 p.m. And coupled with that is a community resource fair that I think is going to be very helpful, especially for those who are still needing to connect to resources as a result of Hurricane Milton. So that fair will be available at 4 p.m. on both of those days, but starting at 5 p.m., we're going to be hosting our first Parent University, and this is a special event to empower our parents with the tools and training they need to enhance literacy with their students at home. So we're going to help parents help their children at home by providing this, what I would call a professional learning opportunity for our parents, and we're really excited about kicking this series off throughout the year. We're going to hold several of these periodically, and we'll be continuing to advertise that. So please come out and be a part of this. It'll be a great event. If you need more information, please make sure that you check our website as well. So again, just want to remind you that there will not be school on Friday, but please, students, parents, we will have school tomorrow and on Thursday. Friday will be a professional day, and teachers will be on duty that day. And it is National School Bus Safety Week from October 21st through the 25th, so we want to celebrate our bus drivers, as well as making sure we emphasize the importance of school bus safety during that week. And we needed to reschedule 2 of our community forums as a result of the hurricane. So now the referendum community forum that was going to be at Sarasota High last week will now be on October 22nd, and we'll be at Booker High on the 29th, and that will be our last 2 public forums as we lead into the November 5th election with a very, very important vote that I call the last vote on that actually might be the most important vote of all. So please make sure that you are looking at your entire ballot from page 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 being the key, page 4, where there's a very important referendum question for all of the voters. And that is it.
Thank you, Superintendent Connor. We are now going to be moving on to hearing of citizens. I have 10 cards in reference to the agenda portion. All 10 are speaking on Liberty University, item number 4. So as I call you up, if you would come up, state your name, and go ahead, and you will have 2 minutes in reference to that specific agenda item that you have placed on the card. I'm sorry, 30 minutes each. 3 minutes, I apologize, 2 at the end, but 3 minutes each. I apologize humbly. First one will be Wendy Rosen, and then will be Mike Weddle.
I want to thank the superintendent for clarifying the issues with Liberty University, but I had written this beforehand, and I am curious now as to how we do our outreach to find new teachers and interns. So I think a national recruitment effort is required. We have a teacher shortage. We know we have a teacher shortage. If we're desperate for teachers and interns to move to Sarasota, we don't need to do special agreements with specific universities until those universities approach us. And I understand that that's happened now. Dealing with a troubled evangelical university is still a concern to me. Liberty University does not teach the family values that this county would expect. In fact, this year, Liberty University was fined $14 million by the U.S. Department of Education because it had long discouraged sexual assault victims from coming forward, among other unethical behaviors. The leadership of Jerry Falwell Jr., during his leadership, there was a Title IX case that was pretty serious brought against the university. Liberty is a troubled institution that has spent 4 long years negotiating a settlement with their scandalous founder's son. And recently, they welcomed Falwell Jr. back on campus. We don't need these kinds of family values imposed on our students. We also don't need volunteer chaplains in our schools, as we had possibly found interest in earlier. According to Florida State Attorney General, the Diocese of Venice has been sheltering pedophile priests for decades. Recorded lawsuits of the last decade have well proven that religious institutions are where predators hide. Whatever energy and outreach budget dollars that we have should be spent on building stronger relationships with our regional public schools, colleges, and for a national recruitment program that's really very inexpensive. It's quite affordable. So it sounds like we have a problem with process or priorities. I don't know. But I am concerned. And I want to know if there is any cost at all for our county to this partnership. Are we providing special incentives for Liberty students? What is our benefit? And is this another off-the-wall directive from Governor DeSantis? Thank you.
Mike Weddle, and then Logan Lopez.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Mike Weddle, county resident and taxpayer, Mr. Superintendent, board. And I appreciate Superintendent Connor for your comments about Liberty University. My comments are not religious in nature. We live in a very diverse religious culture. And specifically, I am not opposed to extending the affiliation agreement to include Liberty University. I'm not opposed to that. Although if passed, I think we have to acknowledge the school's current significant difficulties, some of which were just mentioned. And we either need to ask ourselves, is this something we want to do right now? All of these events just occurred in the past few months. And if we do affiliate, we need to be very, very specific about supervision of Liberty students with our young people. We're responsible for their safety. I don't blame students for the sins of their institution, but we have a responsibility to our students and their safety. The agreement includes, as Mr. Connor said, field experience in school counseling with our students, also teaching. Liberty University is affiliated under the Southern Baptist Conference. Liberty is currently under federal supervision for the past few months, not just for discouraging victims of crime to come forward, but for enabling perpetrators who sexually abused students and then punishing students under what they call the Liberty Way, punishing those victims for reporting those crimes. That was the Liberty Way. These perpetrators who exist, we know they exist, they're unnamed, they live in a culture where rape is permissible, and some of those may be the interns or an intern that would want to come here. So we have to be very specific about supervision. The Southern Baptist Conference was formed for one reason, to support racial chattel slavery. They called slavery the institution of heaven. Today, the church conference is best known for kicking out churches that treat LGBTQ Christians as persons, and for supporting ministers and covering up ministers who sexually abuse children in their congregations. Those list of ministers that we know of is now more than 200. So again, I don't blame the students for the sins of their supervisors, but we understand they're coming from a specific culture. The culture may be different than ours, and we are responsible to our students and families for the consequences of our vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Logan Lopez, then Julie Forster.
Speaking on agenda item number 18, not number 4. I am a former student of Sarasota County. I feel we are going the wrong way with school safety, as there have been many decisions made that have been detrimental to student safety, namely egress design, or more simply said, escape routes. The most apparent example that comes to mind is the closure of School Avenue, which was done under the auspices of Stoneman Douglas, but many in the community have pointed out that the school board have been trying for over a decade to close this road. At the opposition of the Sarasota Planning Board, the local communities and neighborhoods, and yet this was paid for with referendum dollars. With these big fences up, the students, when seconds count, the students can't get out. As a former Sarasota High student, I felt SHS to be one of the safest campuses because you could easily escape in whatever emergency. And I knew the true purpose of closing this road, which was most certainly not school safety. It was student control, as there is Taco Bell, Publix, and Panera within walking distance. Please put your focus on actual school safety, not performative security theater such as forcing students to wear badges, as was mentioned by another public commenter, which does nothing for school safety. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Julie Forster, and then Anya Dennison.
Good afternoon. In one of my recent speeches, I spoke about the need to create a pipeline for recruiting talented teachers to our district. I consider myself a pragmatist and understand there is a real need to recruit teachers to fill vacancies in the district. That's why I'm glad to see the district has partnered with 18 schools to do exactly that. I also know that Sarasota County has some of the best teachers, so I'm excited to see these partnerships because I believe they will help develop qualified teachers. Now, while we must prioritize developing a robust and sustainable source of qualified educators for our district, it is equally important to ensure these future teachers embody the qualities we value most. Student teachers who come from politically and ideologically charged environments may bring biases and perspectives that could hinder their ability to provide a neutral and inclusive learning environment for all students. And as Mike Weddle pointed out, it could also be a safety issue. We must prioritize teachers who demonstrate a commitment to fact-based instruction, teachers who prioritize evidence-based information and present diverse perspectives in a balanced manner, respect for diverse viewpoints, teachers who foster open dialogue and create safe spaces for students to explore ideas without fear of judgment or indoctrination, focus on students' needs, teachers who place the educational and emotional well-being of their students above any personal agenda. With that being said, I have some questions that I would appreciate if Mr. Connor or other district staff could answer before voting on this agreement. Some of these have already been answered, so I'll try to cut those out. How is the district ensuring that student teachers are learning to provide fact-based instruction, respect diverse viewpoints, and focus on student needs? Furthermore, what flexibility do student teachers have to insert their own ideologies into our public school curriculum, and how can we safeguard against this? I've read that Liberty University doesn't teach science. How will we ensure LU student teachers will have the well-rounded background our district requires our teachers to have? What safeguards does the district have in place to ensure that incoming student teachers are qualified to teach in the district? How does the district go about vetting schools for these agreements, making sure that students are safe, and doing and what we are doing to increase, and what are we doing to increase the number of schools we're partnering with. By carefully vetting our student-teacher pipeline and partnering with institutions that prioritize these qualities, we can ensure that the next generation of educators in our district are well prepared to serve all students fairly and effectively. I'm really excited that the district is taking the initiative to recruit and train teachers. I'm just concerned with what schools are being chosen and why. I hope you can clarify why LU was chosen and how we can ensure incoming student teachers are qualified to teach in our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Anya Dennison, and then Richard Stammer.
Hi y'all, I'm Anya. I hope that you are all taking care after the storm and that you and your families are doing all right. I'm speaking on agenda item 4. I'm curious to learn about what sort of trainings and regulations are in place to make sure that all teachers, TAs, and interns provide the same quality of education to Sarasota students, regardless of the educational program that they studied under. The conversation around liberty has me thinking about it, and I'm curious to know what sort of rules exist to follow statute and to make sure that all students have the same opportunities and receive that same state standard information. I'm excited to learn more, and I'm grateful to have these sorts of partnerships available. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Richard Stammer, and then Xander Moritz.
Good afternoon. I'm Richard Stammer, 22-year resident of Sarasota and retired in child welfare. I trust you all on the board and everyone in the room made it through the recent hurricanes okay. Before my time goes out, I want to make sure that I'm very clear that I vehemently oppose a relationship with Liberty University for so many reasons that just started to been stated, including the legal issues as well as the separation of church and state. And I was going to write a lot of stuff, but I decided I'm just going to read a little bit from the mouth of Liberty. Their philosophy of education, these are quotes. Liberty University is a distinctively Christian academic community, and it summarizes itself in the following propositions. God, the infinite source of all things, has shown us truth through Scripture, nature, history, and above all, in Christ. Persons are spiritual, rational, moral, social, and physical, created in the image of God. They are therefore able to know and to value themselves and other persons, the universe, and God. Education as a process of teaching and learning involves a whole person by developing the knowledge, values, and skills which enable each individual to change freely. Thus, it occurs most effectively when both instructor and student are properly related to God and each other through Christ. These are all lofty pronouncements. I am a Methodist. I taught Sunday school. I was a Methodist. I taught Sunday school. I'm now a Unitarian Universalist. However, my moral structure is based upon the Christian faith. I have no problem with that. And I respect Liberty University for continuing to do what it does, but I do not feel that it should remain in the public sphere and that we should support it. And if we need more teachers, we need to give them more money. And we need to make this a better place for them to teach, even though I know it's excellent and A-rated, we still need more. Just a few other things. Maintaining the vision of the founder, Dr. Jerry Falwell, Sr., as well as his son. The Liberty University develops Christ-centered men and women with the values, knowledge, and skills essential to impact the world. Through its residential and online programs, services, facilities, and collaborations, the university educates men and women who will make important contributions to their workplaces and communities, follow their chosen vocations as callings to glorify God, and fulfill the Great Commission. I don't know what the Great Commission is, but I doubt that it's a public governmental commission. Promote the synthesis of academic knowledge and a Christian worldview in order that there might be a maturing of spiritual, intellectual, social, and physical value-driven behavior. And finally, encourage a commitment to the Christian life.
Thank you, sir. Xander Moritz, and then Julie London.
Hello, board. I hope each of you and your families fared well through the storm. Robin, I know you got hit hard last time, so I hope you were spared this time and that you have time to recover. We're all thinking of you when we were chatting about y'all earlier. I came here to speak on agenda item 4, and Superintendent Connor, you addressed my primary concern. So thank you for kind of front loading with that information and making that easy for us to work through. I feel relieved to know that no matter what Liberty University standards are, which are frankly dangerous and a little disgusting, our students will continue to be taught under our standards, which at least acknowledge that science is real. So that brings a lot of relief, and I think was the main concern that a lot of folks had. I hope that by learning from our amazing teachers, Liberty U teachers might be exposed to a less toxic and less regressive method of instruction. And all in all, I'm really, really proud to see that we are working to be a part of the solution to the nationwide and statewide teacher shortage. So I really applaud that, just as long as we're not promoting ideologies that marginalize our students. I'm also excited to see how many Florida schools that we're partnering with. I thought that was great and really intentional, and I want to see us prioritize those as much as possible. And I think, I mean, I don't know a better way for people to learn how to be good teachers than working with our teachers. So this seems great. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Julie London, then Sebastian Martinez.
I'm Julie London. The real burden on bringing Liberty University students into the fold of Sarasota School District would fall on the teachers if the board votes yes. The faculty would be guiding students that have an indoctrinated biblical approach to education, while Sarasota teachers teach from state-approved textbooks. Our teachers are underpaid and overburdened, and the board would be adding to that workload. It would be a culture shock for the Liberty U students, and the vast difference in teaching approach would be questioned again and again, directed at tired teachers. Teachers want to focus on the students, not defend the way Florida and the rest of public schools across the United States teaches its kids. I look at Mr. Enos and think of the weight he would have to carry as a former school resource officer if the board voted to bring in the Uvalde school-trained officers. I look at Mrs. Marinelli and her years of counseling students. How would she feel being questioned by students that she isn't counseling students correctly? The students may be condescending in their beliefs and say, that's not how we learned it at Liberty University. And it's not fair to the students who will ultimately get the short end of the stick. Is this extreme school the one we want to select as a pool of potential candidates into our school system? Other candidates would run from any public school that has an affiliation with Liberty U. Scandals don't go away with settled lawsuits. They linger, as Sarasota well knows. We were taught as kids of guilt by association. Their reputation will sully ours. There are over 5,300 universities in the United States, yet one of the best school districts, Sarasota, is taking a vote to bring in not only the most scandal-ridden college into the fold, but one that offers a completely different teaching approach that doesn't accommodate every student. This is the same as any of us having a talented, musically inclined daughter and choosing P. Diddy to mentor her. One doesn't make a Cafe L'Europe chef train a Hardee's cook. The TV show 60 Minutes can't be training a Honey Boo Boo. The differences between Liberty U and our A-rated school district are too far apart. This is a heck of a time to bring controversy once again into our school system when a millage referendum vote is going to take place in about 20 days. Have the backs of the Sarasota teachers and uphold the reputation of this district. Vote no to this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian Martinez, and then Carol Lerner.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Sebastian Martinez, and I'm a graduate from our district schools. I hope you all stayed safe during the hurricane, that your homes and families are safe, and that you hopefully have power again by now. And today I wanted to speak on agenda item 4, the approval of the affiliation agreements between Liberty University and the school board. Thank you for providing clarity on this item before the meeting. Most of my speech originally that I had prepared was also just asking for clarity. I personally don't take issue to this agreement. I believe that any steps the district and this board takes in resolving our teacher shortages is critical to our success, especially given the fact that there are students who are going the entire academic school year without an actual solid teacher in place, who either have long-term subs or in some instances multiple substitute teachers, obviously stalling positive academic results. We shouldn't be taking issue with these partnerships on the basis of their religious affiliation. The university's problems are different than the actual students. Placing blame or scrutiny on the students for their university would be like blaming Sarasota students for controversies we've lived through since 2022, and that's not right. I believe that if these teachers are qualified and certified, teaching our curriculum and following the guardrails that are already in place, all the things that the superintendent clarified, then there should be no issue with them teaching in our schools simply because of their religious beliefs. I guess the only thing I'd also just like to ask is for more clarity on the process of how these affiliation agreements come about. Does it come from individual students requesting for the agreement to be made with the district? Does it come from university administration? Can anyone make that request? What does that look like? And what are the positive and negatives with expanding to a wider range of universities? Thank you again for providing clarity and easing the concerns of those in our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Carol Lerner?
Touch the mic.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Connor, for some clarification. It does not change my opinion, but I do like the idea of reaching out to schools for these affiliation agreements. There are hundreds of schools of education. Many have online programs, so I think that's a great idea. I'd also like to point out on the religion, what would happen if we substitute the Christian orientation of liberty with, say, Islamic? I have a feeling we'd have many people, many more people here in the chamber. School districts play an important role in training teachers through shadowing, practicums, and student teaching internships. As someone who experienced both ends of this as a student teacher and as a Rutgers and University of Pennsylvania field instructor for graduate students in MSW programs, I know the importance of these affiliation agreements for both the students who receive quality hands-on experience under the tutelage of a veteran staff and for school districts which may benefit by recruiting quality educators. But I was alarmed when I saw Sarasota County Schools had an affiliation agreement with Liberty University. For those of you unfamiliar with Liberty University and its teacher training program, Virginia-based Liberty University is a highly political institution founded by Jerry Falwell Sr., who used it to further his political lobbying group, the Moral Majority. His idea in establishing Liberty University was to, quote, train young champions for Christ, unquote, a slogan that is also the motto of the very large teacher training program at Liberty, at both its on-campus and online school of education. Unlike many religious-affiliated colleges and universities that do not mix religion directly with educating future educators, and I looked at some. I looked at Catholic University, for example, explicitly religion, but no mention of religion in their teacher training program. Liberty University is explicitly Christian, using a biblical approach to teacher training. In its School of Education course descriptions, the following is stated, quote, emphasis is placed upon the educational foundations as found in the scriptures and the applicability of these to both the Christian school movement and the public school system. All education students are required to take such courses as Christian life, biblical worldview, introduction to theology survey. Prospective physics and earth science teachers take courses, quote, taught from a Christian perspective, so the students can graduate prepared to teach students ethically and with biblical principles in mind. Such biblical principles include the young earth theory, that the earth is between 6,000 and 10,000 years old and that humans and dinosaurs coexisted.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, in reference to the public comments. In reference to that, Superintendent Connor, do you have any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Yes, sir. Item 15, the Sarasota Government Resiliency SRQ grant has been moved to a future agenda.
Thank you. Anyone, members of the board, in reference to comments in regard to any of the agenda items at this point for consent?
Want to make a motion?
Do we have a motion?
Okay. I move approval of the consent agenda as amended.
Motion by Ms. Ziegler. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Marinelli. Any discussion in reference to the consent agenda? Ms. Marinelli?
Thank you. Since majority was on number 4, I would like to thank the 2 young men who are graduates from our great school district for their comments and for being open-minded about our agreement with Liberty University and giving the student who asked to come here a chance to work with our great staff. And I just wanted to say I appreciate that. And I would be real curious, Mr. Connor, if the student hears this board meeting and the public comments, if the student still chooses to come here. Because I like to think that Sarasota County is very open-minded and very tolerant of all religions and all beliefs. And I would be greatly distressed if this person that comes to do their student teaching felt that this was not a welcoming environment and could be viewed as a hostile environment. So I'd be real curious to find out if he or she still comes here. Thank you.
Mr. Edwards?
I certainly have had many years of disagreement regarding the head of that university. So I appreciate the consternation and the questions that were raised. But I do want to point out that we cannot and never should discriminate based upon anything that's affiliated with religion. That's a federal law. It's a protected class. So the same thing could be said, as we said, about the Islamic religion or the Jewish religion. If they came from that particular school or that kind of background, we would never, ever, ever discriminate based upon that. So I just want to point that out, that you're right to have concerns. It's great, but no different than any candidate coming through our interviewing process and our orientation process and our training process and our onboarding process. That student will go through exactly the same things. And if they wash out because of our criteria, they wash out because of the criteria, not because of Liberty University. And that's what we would stand for. So I just want to make sure that we be careful what you wish for. So I will be supporting that affiliation.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Ms. Ziegler?
Thank you. I actually appreciate Mr. Edwards' comments that were very similar as to where I wanted to highlight. I'm very appreciative of the superintendent clarifying some of the items. Yes, indeed, we are having a challenge across the nation when it comes to hiring any teachers. And I think that while expanding the potential net doesn't change our standards at any time, and I am very proud of the standards that we have in this district. Again, Mr. Edwards articulated very much what I wanted to say, is that I think it somewhat pains me to hear, I understand elements of the concern, but then there were some comments made that really just kind of hit me in the gut. And I don't know if we have any teachers right now that attended Liberty University. If they did, I hope that they don't take any of this personally. And I would like to see us illustrate that we do have a tolerance, no matter, as Mr. Edwards said, doesn't matter what the religious affiliation of the higher education institution is. It's the quality of that individual when they come to interview with us. And I think the more we can shine a light onto what transpires in Sarasota County is a wonderful opportunity. So I will absolutely be supporting this.
Thank you. I know that Ms. Rose is also online. Ms. Rose, do you have any comments?
No, I don't. Thank you, Mr. Enos.
Thank you, ma'am. I would also just say, I totally understand and I appreciate, in reference to the concerns that were brought up, in reference to the different things, in reference to the issues that the university is having. I also look at it, though, is that it ultimately comes back to the person and the integrity of the person, and they could be here and they may end up being the greatest teacher we've ever had here. Because when I look at it, what if this was the University of Notre Dame, or what if this was Baylor, what if this was Texas Christian, what if this was Southern Methodist, what if there's a lot of institutions that are out there. But at the end of the day, I understand the concerns specific, and I truly appreciate the come forward to let us know that these things are concerns out there and they're concerns of the community. But again, I believe that it's just like in anything else. If you come in here and you don't conform to the values of what we expect in Sarasota County Public Schools, then you won't be an employee here, because we're going to hold you accountable to that level. And I would say that from the top to the very bottom, no matter who it is, and that's where it should be. So based on that is that I don't want to condemn, as I know a lot of speakers said, I'm not going to condemn the person who wants to come here because they want to work in Sarasota County for a great school district. I don't necessarily have to report support the values of what the university may or may not have, but I think that we have to be open to that. So with that, if there are any other comments, with this, we'll have to do a voice vote. Mr. Edwards, please.
Yes.
Ms. Ziegler?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Marinelli?
Yes.
And I also vote yes, so passes 5-0. Thank you. Now we'll go on to new business. It'll be item 16.
I move that the construction manager contract with Gilbane Building Company for the Venice High School Stadium Enhancement Project be approved as presented.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. Ziegler. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Marinelli. Any comments?
I just wanted to, the superintendent to.
Oh, I'm sorry, Superintendent Connor.
Thank
I didn't
you.
see you.
Thank you. Thank you. So yes, the board did approve the pre-construction agreement for this project back in May, and the design and the constructability has proceeded. The CM price, the schematic and design development documents, and the project team worked within the allocated budget for the project to develop the final construction document. So this contract represents the guaranteed maximum price, the GMP, for the construction project. The scope of work does include, and this is for the Venice High School Stadium Enhancement Project, by the way, new construction of a two single-story field buildings, replacement of the football field with synthetic turf, new bleachers and renovations to the existing bleachers, a new press box, the refurbishing of the existing track, and the safety components, construction of 3 new sand volleyball courts, and the installation of the baseball field netting and other site work and hardscape aspects. The total project budget is $12,300,000. The CM contract in the amount of $11,203,887 is included in the total project budget, and we present this to you for approval today.
Well, thank you, Superintendent Connor. Do we have any comments? Ms. Ziegler?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to address, I know we, perhaps all board members have received a variety of members of the community reaching out on this for a couple, there's varying reasons. And I have spoken with the superintendent. I know I recognize the passion and excitement, and particularly when it comes to Venice and sports. I wish we could do all things that we possibly can be, but we do have a responsibility to stay within the confines of what we have put forward, particularly in our capital improvement plan. This year, as an example, one of our projects being the Macintosh farm. Why am I blanking on it?
Farm.
Thank you. Macintosh Farm being a priority as well. And so there are a lot of things that we have to weigh and juggle. And if I could, I'm sure everyone up here, listen, I used to be a track runner. I would love to see us expand that and have those opportunities. I just wanted to address those because they are heard. If we could wave a magic wand and grant everyone the ideas that they have, I'm sure we would. But I understand what we have to kind of weigh at every minute. We look at the entire district. So I will be supporting this. I just wanted to address some of the concerns.
And Mr. Edwards, please.
Thank you. Following up on what Mrs. Ziegler said, I spend a lot of time on that field in Venice on Friday nights. So I appreciate a lot of the concerns and the conversations. The conversations I've had with folks, and I hope Mr. Connor will chime in because I know I referred a few to him as well. We went through a bidding process, and once the bids statutorily happen, we're kind of locked in, and there's not a lot of wiggle room that's available to us as a board or to the budget. And I know the community wants to try and jump in and see where they can help. I will tell you on a personal level, I have kicked the tires every which way I can, and I personally am bound with the board and the superintendent statutorily, and this is the very, very best that we can do. So I just want the community to know that we tried everything possible, and this is where we're at. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Connor?
Yeah, and I'll just say, too, the original scope in the project was $9 million, and we were able to get it up to 12.3. So, there's been a lot of work on the team to really, prioritize that capital budget in order to build in, because the scope has gotten large with the increase in construction cost and the things that we want to accomplish with this enhancement project. So we were able to squeeze out an additional $3.3 million to get to where we're at.
Ms. Marinelli?
Thank you. I also want to acknowledge all the emails and letters that I had received concerning Venice, and I don't think I have anything else to add that my colleagues, Mrs. Ziegler and Mr. Edwards, have said, and Superintendent Connor, that we tried to do the best, and I think that with all the renovations, Venice High School is going to have an excellent, excellent field and track, and wish them a lot of success because that community loves their schools. So thank you.
Ms. Rose, any comments?
No, thank you, Mr. Enos.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and we'll do a voice vote. I also recognize all the emails and literally have done everything. I've had conversations with Dr. Kemp in reference to facilities, and there's guidelines that have to be followed, and it also has to be standard across the district, and that's the biggest thing that we have to look at. So with that, we'll go ahead. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Ms. Ziegler?
Yes.
Ms. Marinelli?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Item 15 passes. 5-0?
16.
16. Wow. On to the next. Item 17. Mr. Connor, will you present, please?
Yes, so this is the approval of the agreement to construct a multipurpose field and the supporting facilities for joint use at the new Sky Ranch School between Sarasota County and the school board. So this agreement is really just outlining the construction and the joint use agreement for the multipurpose field. It is going to have a tremendous benefit to the community. It's going to be a state-of-the-art facility. It's going to be a lighted multipurpose field and track. It's going to be a beautiful place out right at our new school that will be opening up next year. Our students will have priority access to this during the school hours. The county will manage this after hours, so all scheduling of after-hour events will run through the Parks and Rec department with the county. The school district and the county are going to share in the ongoing maintenance of this and the cost to run the facility. So we bring this forth to you tonight for approval.
Thank you, Superintendent Connor. Do I have a motion?
I move that the agreement to construct a multipurpose field and supporting facilities for joint use at Sky Ranch School between Sarasota County and the School Board of Sarasota be approved as presented.
Motion by Ms. Ziegler. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Marinelli. Any comments?
It's very exciting.
Seeing none, we'll go ahead and do a voice vote. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Ms. Ziegler?
Yes.
Ms. Marinelli?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Number 17 passes 5-0. On to number 18. Superintendent Connor?
Yeah, so today at our workshop, and I do recognize, I want to just pause for a moment and say I do recognize that we had some technical difficulties today during our workshop being broadcast. So I think we've worked a lot of that out for this meeting, but just want to make sure everyone understands that we will upload that workshop so that anybody can go back and watch that in its entirety without the glitches. But at that workshop today, our safety and security team, as required by House Bill 1473, presented the Q2 report on compliance, and so that is what we're asking for approval. All of the details were shared at the workshop, so I don't know if there's any questions about that, but we do have our team here, and we present this for approval tonight.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion?
I move that the Q2 Safety and Security Report and the 2024-2025 School Security Risk Assessment be approved as presented.
Motion by Ms. Ziegler. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Marinelli. Do we have any comments? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and do a voice vote. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Ms. Ziegler?
Yes.
Ms. Marinelli?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. That does conclude our new business. Now we'll go on to hearing of citizens in reference to general comment. This will be 2 minutes. As we move forward, we do have 4 cards. Just for clarification, if a point of order is mentioned, if you would stop as you were doing your public comment, you will get your time back. Ms. Tompkins will stop the timer. It will be up for discussion, and then it will go back to the continued business of the speaker. Just in that is in reference to making sure that we stay within the guidelines of what our policy 2.22 is in reference to public comments. Seeing that, our first is going to be Logan Lopez, and then will be Ron Springman, then Sebastian Martinez, and then Carol Lerner.
Hello again. My name is Logan Lopez, and I am the chairman.
Hold on one second. Thank you, sir. Your time. That's the
All
fastest
right.
2 minutes ever.
Okay.
Thank you. Hold on one second, please. Yeah. Ms. Tompkins? Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Hello again. My name is Logan Lopez, and I am the chairman of Sarasota for Smarter Property Taxes. I heard in the last board meeting Ms. Ziegler saying that they were unaware of any opposition to the school tax, but I am bringing your awareness that there is. The school tax, as I mentioned back in February, is detrimental to student achievement, harmful for school safety, as I mentioned earlier, and does not help the community. The original premise was to make our schools more like those of China, India, and Japan, which have extremely long school days. It wasn't to cover a budget shortfall. To vote yes on this harmful referendum is to make our education system more like China's, where a no vote affirms that an American education system is the best. A no vote says to this out-of-touch and out-of-control school board that we no longer want to harm our students, our teachers, or our community with closing roads, having sleepier kids, or making it more unaffordable to live in Sarasota County. I'd like to thank Mr. Connor and Mr. Dugan for being much better on the election laws, because I knew in previous elections those weren't followed to the T. Please vote no on the school referendum. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ron Springman, and then Sebastian Martinez.
Ron Springman, 2-year Vietnam veteran. Even though my home has received substantial damage, it's so important to address why organized corporate criminals are a major threat to our nation's children's future. Even President Honest Abe Lincoln realized the threat from an excerpt of a letter he wrote to Colonel William Elkins on November 21st, 1864. Quote, "Dear Colonel Elkins, we may congratulate ourselves that this cruel war, which has cost a vast amount of treasure and blood, is nearing its end. Yet as we approach peace, I see in the near future a crisis approaching that unnerves me and causes me to tremble for the safety of my country. Corporations have been enthroned in an era of corruption, and high places will follow, and the money power of the country will endeavor to prolong its reign by working upon the prejudices of the people until all wealth is aggregated into a few hands of the republic and the republic is destroyed. I feel at this moment more anxiety for the safety of my country than ever before, even in the midst of war." Unquote. Some have tried to debunk his word, but they can be authenticated on page 40 of the Lincoln Encyclopedia, the spoken and written words of Abe Lincoln. With mega billionaire Elon Musk attending Trump rallies, it is obvious
Point of order.
Trump
on,
is
sir.
in the pockets of large corporations, including the fossil fuel industry, which is a major threat to the world. Voters must wake up and save our nation and vote blue, regardless of party affiliation. Robin, you are obviously a Trump supporter, and being so, what
Point of order.
Right to interfere in
Mr.
any
Springman.
speaker's First Amendment
Mr.
rights?
Springman.
Don't be
Sir, we're respectful to you, and I ask, would you please stop? At this point, no personal attacks. You can go ahead, and we understand that this is your political point of view. I mean, we'd like to keep to the matter of the board, but please, no personal attacks, and reference to you to know.
She attacks speakers all the time.
Mr. Springman?
She attacks speakers all the time.
Please calm down. Please keep it to the business.
She attacks gay speakers
to the
in this board.
To the order of the board, please. Thank you.
She's a disgrace. Can I finish up?
You have your time. Please keep it to the matter of the board of business. Just so you know, authority of the statute, 1006, I don't want to give you a warning, okay, because we're here in order to be civilized and to get to the heart of the matter, which is the business of the board.
Okay, the business of the board is not to violate the First Amendment rights of the speakers, okay?
And it has not been violated, sir, and I know the First Amendment rights very, very well.
All right, can I finish?
Yes, sir.
Am I on speaker?
You've not been off speaker. Thank you.
Okay. So, don't be at all surprised when you find yourself in a civil courtroom being you are the most ardent hack on the board, even publicly calling Trump our president, which he is not. However, Tim Enos appears to be a nonpartisan and actually brings something to the board, unlike you, Robin, who only further divides the board and its citizens.
Next, we have Sebastian Martinez, and then Carol Lerner.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Again, my name is Sebastian Martinez, and I want to keep these comments brief. This is my first meeting back since August between getting sick, taking care of my parents, storms, and everything in between. So it's nice to be here again and to see all of you. First, I wanted to congratulate Ms. Barker, Mr. Edwards, and I'd like to thank the other present members of the board for how these meetings have been operated since. The energy in here and the tone feels drastically different, and truly I do appreciate clarifying controversial agenda items before meeting starts. I think that really sets a tone and helps ease concerns. One of the things I'd want to ask the board to consider doing more of is doing more either town halls with the board or more community forums, and not only when the district necessarily needs something. Like, I know we've had them for the referendum, which are important. I love the coffee with Connor, as well as the listening tour when you first came to our district. But I believe that each member of the board going out into the community, discussing concerns, seeking out both positive and negative feedback, and having healthy, civil conversation can help in building community moving forward and a relationship with the public that builds trust and collaboration. A lot of the times we see politics become divisive or polarizing. People feel as if you don't have 100% of the same shared beliefs, then you can't talk or you can't be friends. And I think we can make a lot of progress by bridging that divide. I mean, leading up to the election, while I was up in Chicago for the Democratic National Convention as an elected delegate, most of my time and calls were with Republicans, young Republicans and conservative families, giving my pitch for a student-focused school board. And as a result, by humanizing each other and recognizing each other as people and not our politics, we can help heal the divide in our community. Now, on the referendum, really quickly, I'd like to ask voters watching to vote yes on this important referendum that helps fund our schools, good programs that are going to bring our district closer and closer to becoming the #1 school district in the state. The funds will go towards ensuring school safety, promoting student safety, elevating workforce education, to help our trade programs, and to attract and retain qualified teachers. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. And finally, Carol Lerner.
Good afternoon again. Carol Lerner. I would like to thank the school district for its heroic role in providing shelter once again to thousands of residents forced to evacuate from the ravages of Hurricane Milton. In speaking with several acquaintances who utilized the shelter, they had very favorable views of their experience, except for complaints that the buildings were uncomfortably hot. Seems like the district desperately needs backup generators, something that should be viewed as a necessity for any Florida schools. 2 weeks ago in this chamber, I warned that in the wake of Helene, more storms would likely be coming, not realizing that this would become a frightening reality that very same week. This is climate change in action, and this is why we must teach our students robust and up-to-date information on climate change. We need to educate students on the dangers of climate misinformation and prepare students to enter fields that develop solutions to our many environmental crises. Finally, I would like to comment on Mrs. Marinelli's use of point of order. It was used in the last meeting when I raised my concerns about the passage of Amendment 1 on the ballot. I would like to explain how discussing Amendment 1 has everything to do with our own school board. If Amendment 1 passes, it would make school board races partisan. That would very much change the way we do elections, and I think would actually do something that Mrs. Marinelli is very much against. And she's rightfully against politicizing school board meetings. And I think a partisan election will just enhance that. So I would like the community to vote yes on the mill referendum. That is critically important. and to vote no on Amendment 1. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes our citizen comments in reference to general in regard to the agenda. We'll now move on to member comments. Mr. Edwards?
Feel free to start with others on occasion, but I'll be happy. I'll be happy to go today.
I can switch it for you,
but you know,
I can
throw it around.
I will, sir. I will.
Throw it around. I know a lot of people have talked a lot about our quality staff and the shelters and all of the work that has gone into this. I cannot highlight enough the administrators and the teachers and the SRO and the custodians, because if you think about what it was like in your own home, what you had to do individually to prep, and then how anxious you were to get back if you had to evacuate, get back to your house and see your damage, those folks don't get to do that. They're automatically brought in the day before to prep, and they don't leave until the last guest is out. And so the kudos that these folks get for making everyone feel comfortable and welcome is so far beyond and above the call of duty, because they're suffering their own anxiety, their own fears, and they still provide. And I personally, I mean, I did a lot more during Ian because it just happened that way, but I saw how incredibly dedicated people are and without missing a beat, and I cannot thank them enough for that, how personal that is for them and their families. So that is an important piece for me. The second piece, I just want to highlight Sarah Dan. I know that we talked briefly about food insecurity. All the food was gone. It got ruined. It was served. And so in order for us to be open on Wednesday, Sarah Dan had to go through 75,000 hoops and go. She did everything shy of calling the president to get food for our students tomorrow and Thursday. And we couldn't have opened. It just could not have happened. So I also heard this morning, which I didn't hear, about payroll being paid. That is so essential for people to feel comfortable that when you're coming out of a disaster that there's money in the bank. That, again, is above and beyond the call of duty. So I can't thank enough how people have turned themselves inside out to make this happen. I want to also thank our foundations and our nonprofits, our community. That is part of the fabric. I mean, what Mrs. Marinelli said today, I don't think she realized how profound it was when she said, you know, everyone relies on the schools, but it takes the whole community to come together, and that is what happened. I saw it with Ian, and just Debbie to Helene to Milton. It's just been nonstop trauma. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. And our community has risen to the occasion. Those smiles on people's faces on the superintendent's reports at the shelters and the nonprofits, I'm forever grateful. One other thing I don't know that people know, the night of the storm, I only found this out because I chased after the superintendent because I didn't have cell service and I knew he didn't have cell service. When I finally got to him, he had explained that on Wednesday night of the storm that they were literally strategizing what it would be like if we had the devastation that Lee County had. What happened if these storms really took out a couple of our schools? What would happen? So not only is everything I described to you, here is a cabinet and a superintendent that are planning worst case scenario while the storm is actually hitting. I think that's an incredible kudo, and cabinet and superintendent, again, above and beyond the call of duty. Lastly, I'm trying not to make this sound political, but it probably is going to end up being that way. But thank you to Hugh Culverhouse for restoring the 211 phone call, because in this kind of emergency, which is what I put on my school board page when that was in jeopardy, it's our teachers, it's our students, it's our families that need that phone number, and that is essential in this kind of emergency. So I want to, just on a very personal level, thank Mr. Culverhouse.
Thank you. Ms. Marinelli.
Oh, okay. You stripped me.
Okay, Ms. Ziegler, you're next.
Nope.
Thank you, Shinori Enos. I want to just echo what all of Mr. Edwards said about the staff and our sheriff's department, police departments, all being there to make sure everyone is safe. I don't know how this happened last night when turning on the TV and I guess, the school board meeting from 2017 came up. I don't even watch the school board channel, so I don't know how it came up on. But anyway, and everybody on the board at that time were talking about the hurricane that hit then. And was that Irma? And Eric Robinson said something that really hit home for me. He said, everybody always refers to the people that are manning the shelters as educational leaders. And he said, no, they are leaders. They are leaders in the community. They are leaders because they can pivot. They make decisions on the turn of a dime. And that is what a true leader does. So I can't thank everybody enough for what they've done. I had a county commissioner call me yesterday thanking the board and everybody for the wonderful work that our staff provided to, and this is the first time I've ever heard of our shelters, people that come to the shelters as guests. And I thought that just sets the tone for people coming, because it is such a, the anxiety. I watched TV and they interviewed Dr. Shelley, talked to the school, and you know, Dr. Shelley, she knows everything that goes on at her school. She was greeting the people, she knew the community members, and you could just see some of that anxiety level going down, and I know that was the way it was at all of our schools. So I just want to thank everybody for that. And I just want to make a comment too. When I said I was going to start doing the point of orders, yes, I do want to see the politics, and that includes things that are on the ballot, whether they are the school system or not. So the only reason I didn't do the point of order with the last speaker is because the way you wove it in there, but if we truly want to do it, then you know, how voting takes place, what people's preference, that needs to stay out of the boardroom. So I am going to do the point of order, and that'll be up to the chair whether he recognizes it or not. But if we truly are going to act, then what the words say, then we need to practice it at all the meetings. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ziegler.
Well, I was going to tell Mr. Edwards, I was going to say, I'll go first because the last two times he's spoken, we're echoing exactly what I was thinking, because I was thinking when we talk about the shelters and, you know, whether, I'm talking to people in the community, whether you evacuated, whether you moved to somebody's house, whatever, and if you were fortunate enough to have your entire home, you know, devastated like those on the barrier islands, there was a lot of work to be done probably in your outdoor, but your home looked like a hurricane had hit it. And when I think about all of our staff who were at the shelters, they didn't get that time to even then come back and then straight back to school. And so
I know everyone had to clean out the refrigerator because the power went out, right? So my heart is to them. I think if I start listing anyone specifically, I think a lot has been said. These moments truly bring out the best in humanity all around. And I know that we see so much support and excitement about the linemen. Yes, we love to have our power, but I hope that same recognition goes to the staff that was manning our shelters, because it gives me goosebumps. And I know we have such a generous community, and the more they do not do it for the praise, I can tell you that. But it really warms my heart, and the responses we have received from people all over that recognize that, it says a lot about this district, this community, and my eternal thanks to all that hard work. I know it's a professional day, so I know it's not like a personal day, but I do hope that staff gets an opportunity to breathe, and perhaps the following weekend, not this upcoming one, will be a normal weekend for them to enjoy. I wanted to mention, someone mentioned about the hurricane and generators. This comes up almost every year, and I just want to highlight this. We have done new construction is being utilized to create more shelters. And when it comes to adding generators, there's certainly a conversation there. As many of us know who are running generators, there's cost incurred. And at the end of the day, shelters are for a short-term protective moment, and not for longevity or really, quite frankly, comfort. Obviously, safety is paramount, but I think this is just really important. I understand it if everyone wants to be comfortable, but it is imperative that it be understood that it is a last resort to ensure safety for a short amount of time. And so we, again, going to the different financial things that we have to juggle and evaluate, that does come to bear because there is a certain cost incurred there. I wanted to ask the superintendent, we talked about makeup days. Thank you for addressing that. When we had Irma in 2017, as we know, the referendum's coming up. Part of that is we get 30 minutes additional. And for Irma, I believe we were out for 10 days. Don't quote me on that, something like that. At the end, obviously we have a requirement of 900 hours, is that right, per statute. It's not really based on days, it's based on hours. And so that year, it was just, hey, we already have the extra 30 minutes. We don't have to add any days. Now, certainly understand, definitely students were definitely celebrating, and I'm sure many members of the staff and even families were. The challenge was, looking forward was, listen, that's not really what our community invests in. They weren't looking as contingency weather days. So we did build additional contingency weather days into our calendar, but they're at the end of the year. What I learned recently from the superintendent talking about what does this look like, there is a minimum based on semester. Can you speak to that just so there's clarity?
Sure. So one of the things we're looking at in terms of the calendar is the fact that a high school credit course it's required to be 135 bona fide instructional hours. And what that means, real minutes, right? Right. And so the statute also delineates that half of that must come in semester one. So 67.5 hours must be provided in a high school credit course. So yeah, we're well over 900, but what we have to really consider is the 135 hours. And so that's where we're really looking at very closely to make sure that we're meeting, if you did that in terms of minutes, that's 4,050 minutes per high school course. So looking at that in the first semester and the second semester is what we're determining in terms of how many days. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to push back the first semester. So currently it ends on December 20th. So we're looking at pushing that back. I think it's going to be a minimum. We're going to work with the calendar committee, right, but a minimum of 10 days. We're going to have to push that semester back. We're going to leverage some professional days. We're going to leverage some of the makeup days that are at the end of the year so that there is at least a 4,050 minute minimum in the first semester and in the second semester to meet the state required minutes for that.
Thank you. And I'm not holding you to any of that, and I didn't want to put you on the spot because I know it has a process to go through. The calendar committee is a very real thing. We have to go through that. but I just know that this has been high on interest, and there's no guarantee, but I wanted to highlight because it's been advertised at the end of the year, but again, I don't think we built in that minute piece of it, so thank you for clarifying that. And I'm just going to put a plug in. You do not have to say anything, but I'm getting a lot of emails that they're requesting not to change Thanksgiving break when we evaluate adding any days. One last thing I'll say is that as mentioned, and I would agree, there's been a really nice tone to our school board meetings, and I would love that. I think that when we stick to our differences on policy, which should be discussed, debated, and I love hearing from the members of the public as well, that is where it really does make a difference in tone. I'm not going to get in. Well, I believe, people are going to have their opinions, but it's when it goes into personal attacks, it really devolves into another level. And I think we've been really, really successful recently. And I think a lot of it comes down to public comment and what is being said and what's not being said. And as we can see, when it devolves into personal comments that really don't kind of keep that high level of decorum that I think everyone has been asking for. So thank you, Mr. Enos. I think you've done a tremendous job. And to my board members. So with that, I yield the floor. No.
Thank you. And Ms. Rose, do you have any comments? All right, well, we'll go ahead and move on. Just a couple of quick things. Obviously, when it relates to the First Amendment, I'm all about the First Amendment. I've protected it my entire life as being an advocate of the First Amendment. As doing this, depending on moving forward, one of the things I made a recommendation to the superintendent, as already talked to Mr. Duggan, is that we'll have a workshop, as we have a changing of coming up with Ms. Barker being sworn in, I believe it's on November 19th. Then at that meeting moving forward, they'll determine the board chair and that, but no matter what, I think that we need to have an update by Mr. Duggan in reference to what is Robert's rules, as well as what's protected under the First Amendment, also what is regarding to our policy, because as we look at that, there are things that are definitely that are okay to speak about, but when it goes is, as is from this, if you want to speak to that, we can have different opinions as a board member, and I could have a different opinion, Ms. Marinelli, that I think that if you want to talk about in reference to the partisanship of the board and the character and the ethics, et cetera, of the board, I believe that's protected under the First Amendment. And as the chair, you either can acknowledge it and warn the person, or you basically can go ahead and say you take it under advisement. That's why if I don't interrupt the speakers, I'm taking it under advisement because of my opinion in reference to doing this has also been through Robert's rules. I am putting it that, and also I've talked to Mr. Duggan, and that if he feels that it's necessary under any comment to also to get in, that it could be appealed to him for him to make the decision in reference to whether or not it goes and it violates what the policy is, because the First Amendment is really, really broad. But again, we're trying to, but when it comes to whether it doesn't matter anybody at the board, I can tell you, I know that depending on if Ms. Rose comes back for the next meeting, that I'm not going to, in my opinion, I don't think that personal attacks are there, no matter what your personal beliefs are in reference to this, is that you should have the respect, and we can have differing opinions on stuff, so it's like Liberty University as an example. I totally get that, and I think that's everybody's right as a citizen of the United States to be able to speak on how they feel and what they believe the impact then could have to our educational process here in Sarasota, which ties into the business of the board because we're getting into a contract. So that's where that kind of piece for me, where it all fits into place, and I truly appreciate that, which gets me to November 5th is Election Day. So please get out to vote, because that is the greatest right that we have as a citizen, is to be able to go out there and to vote, to be able to make sure that as a country that we have a say in our leaders and where that we want to go. And I know that this year is extremely divided as we move forward, but please make sure you go on the 5th. The 6th at 3 o'clock will be our next meeting. Safety, security, thank you for the presentation this morning. I did make a recommendation that we'll be looking at some other features that are coming up in order to make for our staff. I brought up what happened in Georgia and in regard to the way that they locked down, and I think as a community we should always be looking at the most efficient way for us to help our students, because even though that we've been focused on the hurricane, unfortunately, there's somebody else that's out there that's focused on potentially that could be making a name for themselves in order to hurt our kids. We did have the podcast that released on social media that came out, and it kind of got overshadowed, which it should, by the hurricane. But at the end of the day, you see something, you say something, and you put it back onto this board and to the staff, is that we're going to do something about it. Because if you say something and we don't do anything about it, then there's an issue. And that's where it needs to come back to us, especially on school safety. I know that we're 100% across the board. So I'll be looking to add that to agenda item in reference to a workshop. I talked to Mr. Connor about Robert's rules in reference to the First Amendment, point of orders, to give everybody guidelines, including the community, of what would be acceptable and not acceptable when they get up to the podium. Again, with all of that, our next meeting is going to be on November 6th at 3 p.m., which will be the day after our election. And then we'll be meeting on November 19th in reference to the new board taking its seat, with Mr. Edwards, Ms. Barker, Mr. Edwards being sworn in again, and Ms. Barker then taking her position on the board. So that being said, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Edwards. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Marinelli, we're adjourned.